Well, it's day 2 of the African Peer Review Mechanism's annual conference on credit ratings taking place in Cape Town. The event brings together African governments, central banks, credit ratings agencies, investors and development finance institutions. They're discussing the current state of credit ratings on the continent and exploring ways to improve Africa's economic outlook. For more on this now, let's take you live to our economics reporter, Nosipho Radede, who is in Cape Town in the Western Cape. Good afternoon. Can you tell us exactly what you're expecting today on the program?
Good afternoon, Juliet, and to the viewers at home. Of course, to day 2 of the annual Africa Credit Ratings Conference taking place here in Cape Town. We've heard from experts laying the case then for a credit rating agency on the continent. Given the sort of steep penalties that we've been seeing on the continent, the challenges that countries face when it comes to accessing global capital markets. But we've heard the case here for unlocking domestic bond markets, which are essential from the experts' sort of comments today for sustainable financing going forward. But what is the picture going forward? I'm going to turn to my guest now, the CEO of the Mauritius Stock Exchange, Sunil Benimadu. Sunil, a very good day, and thank you so much for your time.
It's a pleasure.
So you gave the keynote address yesterday. Talk to us about some of the lessons then that we can draw from other countries, including South Korea as one of them that were mentioned.
Yes, in fact, as you rightly pointed out, I talked about the situation prevailing some 40 or 50 years ago in countries like South Korea, Singapore, India, and China. All countries which were facing, dire economic problems and lack of depth and breadth in their capital markets. And in 50 and 60 years, they've managed to turn around this situation by embracing bold economic and capital markets reform. And today, they are flying colors and they are economic powerhouses in the world. So if you look at the situation prevailing in Africa today, Africa has a major funding gap. Just to look at some of the data and statistics published by the African Development Bank, Africa has a need of about $100 billion annually to fund its infrastructure requirements. It has a funding gap of about $200 billion to finance the SDG goals. So where will this money come from? It can only come from domestic capital markets. Of course, we have to leverage on the capital available globally, but first we would need to build our domestic capital markets. And the whole discussions that have happened during the last 2 days in this conference is how do we go about leveraging on the potential of Africa and how do we unlock that potential. And we discuss about the setting up of credit rating agencies so as to help plug the information asymmetry gap that exists so that it can bring better confidence to investors that we are looking to invest in our securities, in our bonds. Domestically, we've also been discussing how do we go about deepening and broadening our capital markets. And one of the key messages that cropped up from the discussions was that there is a strong need today for policymakers in Africa to understand that if we want to unlock the economic potential in Africa, we need to put a lot of focus on the development, deepening, broadening of capital markets, and we need to work with a singularity of purpose, with a unity of purpose, so that we set the vision in terms of where we want our financial services sector and our capital markets to go. So that's what has been discussed during the last 2 days.
Now, you are the CEO of the Mauritius Stock Exchange. Talk to us about the innovations then over the past 10 years in unlocking then, potential.
Yes. So Mauritius, is a country of 1.3 million people. It's a very tiny little internal market, and as an exchange, 10 years ago, we realized that if we wanted to grow and deepen our capital markets, we needed to think outside of the borders of Mauritius. So that's when, in 2008, we embarked on what I call an internationalization process to move away from an equity-centric domestic exchange to a multi-asset class internationalized exchange. And to do that, we had to bring in a number of reforms. First, we had to review our listing rules so as to make these listing rules more conducive to the listing of all those niche international products that we wanted to attract. We needed to introduce rules for new products that we wanted to bring on board. And then we realized that if we wanted to attract international investors into these niche issuers that we wanted to bring on board, we needed to have a multi-currency capital raising, listing, trading, and settlement platform. And that's when we brought in the ability for issuers looking at our exchange to list, trade, and settlement in US dollars, in British pounds, in euro, and in South African rands. And one thing that is very critical in the process of internationalizing our exchange is we've rethought about the role that we think an exchange should play. We've considered ourselves as being service providers to help and listen to the requirements of our issuers, of our stakeholders. So this also allowed us to bring very specific changes to cater for the needs of those very specific issuers. And I can tell you that this experience has been extremely rewarding because over the last 10 years, the number of new listings that we've brought in terms of a wide variety of asset classes has been about 100 new securities that we brought to the exchange.
All right, Sunil, thank you so much. We're going to leave it there. Sunil Benimadu, the CEO of the Mauritius Stock Exchange, talking to us about the lessons that can be drawn from other countries as Africa, the continent, then looks to unlocking financing for ensuring then that we reach those development goals that have been set out for the continent. Well, it's back to you in studio, Juliet.
Well, thank you very much. That was our economics reporter, Nosipho Radede, who is at the African Peer Review Mechanisms Annual Conference on Credit Ratings in Cape Town.